Caitlyn Clark is out again with an injury, which is the worst thing you can hear if you're a fan of the Indiana Fever, and really if you're a fan of the WNBA, because obviously Clark is the engine that makes the Indiana Fever go and is the single biggest driver of interest in the WNBA, and it's not close.
Caitlyn Clark's groin injury just blew the lid off the WNBA. This isn't a simple setback. It's the shocking endpoint of weeks of ignored warning signs, questionable decisions, and a league seemingly blind to the constant danger facing its biggest star. The story goes far deeper than a single moment on the court.
Boston hands it off as Clark's back in. She goes down. And midcourt and flexing that ankle.
Oh, Lee, this late in the game, you do not want to see anybody getting banged up. She's coming up.
The footage plays like a slow-motion nightmare. Mid-court, she receives the handoff from Aaliyah Boston, rises, and then, in a single, jarring motion, lands awkwardly, grabbing immediately at her groin. The moment unfolded late in the third quarter against Seattle, a game already decided, which only amplified the growing unease.
Last night, I think it's very much a day-to-day thing, how she responds to treatment. I stay in my lane and let our strength and conditioning and our physical, our AT staff do what they do best.
Coach Stephanie White's immediate response did little to soothe nerves, downplaying the situation as a day-to-day thing, claiming she'd stay in her lane and let the medical staff handle it. But with no clear timeline for her return, especially with a crucial Dallas showdown looming, fans quickly began to suspect a deeper narrative was being kept from them. This wasn't just a sudden impact, it felt like a reckoning.
It's not like there was nothing beforehand. It's not like she was 100% healthy, because she seems to have been injured for a while. But
what if this devastating moment wasn't an isolated incident at all? What if something had been off? Hidden in plain sight, for weeks before that fateful fall. Whispers had been circulating, and for good reason. When you look back at Clark's recent games, the warning signs were impossible to ignore. The league's most prolific shooter suddenly couldn't buy a bucket from deep. Over a recent stretch, Clark astonishingly went just 5 for 23 from beyond the arc.
I will contend, and I will die on this hill, that she has been hurt for as long as this three-point streak, the struggling streak.
For anyone familiar with her game, this wasn't just a cold streak. It was an alarming anomaly for someone with her precision. Analysts were quick to point out that these jarring numbers hinted at something far more significant, something deeper, potentially nagging pain affecting her signature release. Fans started asking, was the defense truly getting smarter, or was something physical holding her back from unleashing her true power?
Certainly not out of the question to look at the shooting performance and attribute it, at least in some part, to this injury. In some degree, to this injury. That is certainly part of the overall equation here. Because when you're hurt, it's harder to perform at the highest level. There's no doubt about that.
The clues weren't just showing up in her stats. They were there, for anyone looking closely, in the pre-game warm-ups themselves. Clark moved with an unusual caution, stretching longer, her focus drawn to her left leg. She struggled visibly through simple plyometrics, the very movements that define her explosive game. Even stranger, fans noticed odd tape placement, high on her thigh. More typical for a groin issue than a quad strain, the injury she'd been reported to have suffered just weeks prior.
She's 1 of 23 in her last 3 games from three-point range. She 8 turnovers in her last game, I think 7 in the game before that. She, in an awful stretch of games, seems to be depressed on the court and playing with a completely different energy and emotion than what she had been.
It raised immediate questions. Was she being properly treated, or merely patched up to stay on the court? During games, her discomfort was undeniable. She winced on the dribble, hesitated on cuts, and visibly struggled to slide on defense. Even after big plays, she'd instinctively grab at her side or take longer to get up. This wasn't a singular instance. It was a slow, visible decline, the breathtaking explosiveness she's known for, fading before everyone's eyes.
One thing we've learned through this process is that Caitlyn Clark doesn't have a great poker face, I don't believe. I noticed something off in her demeanor after the Liberty game, which is when we found out later that she was hurt with the quad strain. And, a lot of people have been looking at her overall demeanor around this Connecticut Sun game and everything that has transpired since. So
when the moment finally arrived, it wasn't a random accident, but the painful climax of a story building for weeks. With only seconds left in the third quarter, Clark sprinted down the floor, received the handoff, and leaped. Her usual fluidity was gone, replaced by an awkward, almost forced motion. She landed hard on her left leg, immediately clutching her groin, her face twisting in obvious pain. What made this moment even more infuriating for fans? The game was already secured for the Fever. There were only seconds left on the clock.
15 seconds to go. The game's over, and Caitlyn gets subbed back on the court for some reason. And Aaliyah Boston throws a bad handoff to her. Like, it was a bad handoff by Aaliyah Boston there. She's then running after the ball, and then she just pulls up with something. She pulls up with something, like she just jumps in the air. Like, I thought she tripped over her own feet. She just jumps in the air. Like, if you're looking at that, like, that's not tripping over her own feet. She just jumps in the air, and then eventually hits the deck in that position there.
Why was Clark still on the floor, given her visible struggles in previous games and the fact that victory was certain? Her teammates' reactions shifted from confusion to immediate, palpable concern. Trainers rushed to her side, and she limped to the bench surrounded by worried faces. Even opposing players looked unsettled. The cameras caught her holding her upper leg, and the broadcast team didn't hold back, speculating that the Fever's relentless reliance on Clark and the league's demanding schedule had finally caught up to her. This wasn't just about one jump or one game. The injury looked like the inevitable result of constant wear and tear.
All I'm going to say is that that's a weird way of going down. You can see her legs like shaking. Her legs shaking as she's trying. Like, that's not good, by the way. That's not good. She's trying to literally lunge. She is trying to lunge, and her leg was shaking.
The questions started flying almost immediately, but they weren't just about the injury itself. They turned sharply to the coaching staff and the league's approach. Should the Fever have pulled her earlier, especially with her recent shooting slump and obvious fatigue? Was the medical team too slow to act, or did they underestimate how serious things were truly getting? Coach Stephanie White's response to questions about the injury only intensified the uproar. Her phrase, "I stay in my lane and watch how the doctor helps her," was widely seen as dismissive, raising even more questions about transparency and trust within the organization. Fans were beyond frustrated, directly pointing fingers and blaming the coaching staff for not taking the warning signs seriously.
Like, it's one of two things. It's either it's groin tightness and she'll be back for the Commissioner's Cup game. She's probably going to miss these next two games. Or it's a groin strain and she's out for the All-Star game. Like, it's one of those two, and there's no in between. There's absolutely no in between.
But the blame didn't stop there. The conversation broadened to the WNBA itself. Many argued the league's physical style of play was putting its biggest stars at unnecessary risk. Fans immediately brought up past incidents, like Marina Mabry's controversial eye incident, as emblematic of what they saw as borderline dirty play the league hadn't curbed. Caitlyn Clark, your greatest asset, is going to get hurt. Fans had been screaming for weeks. The face of your league is going to get hurt if you continue to allow this dirty play to happen, not just physical play. The league wants its stars on the floor every night, but at what cost? If the physicality keeps ramping up and players are forced to push through injuries, is the WNBA setting itself up for disaster?
Is holding her groin. She is holding her groin after that fall.
Now, with Clark sidelined, the conversation has shifted from a single injury to a systemic problem. Is the WNBA doing enough to protect its stars from exactly this kind of situation? The stakes are immense, far bigger than just one player. Caitlyn Clark isn't merely a Fever star, she's the undisputed engine driving record TV ratings and selling out arenas across the country. Losing her spotlight even temporarily threatens viewership and the entire WNBA's hard-won momentum. Every time she takes a hard hit or plays through obvious pain, the risk isn't just to her career, but to the league's future growth.
With Caitlyn, when did you guys find out about this groin injury, and how much of an absence do you expect from her beyond today?
Yeah, late last night. I think it's very much a day-to-day thing, how she responds to treatment. I stay in my lane and let our our strength and conditioning and our physical, our AT staff do what they do best. But yeah, I found out late last night, and then we'll treat it day to day.
Back to back, a factor at all with that?
I mean, I don't know that it's a factor from a physical standpoint, from an athletic training standpoint. Certainly in my mind, it is. But at the same time, she's shown that she's tough and she's a quick healer. So we'll see. Was it something?
The WNBA counts on its top talent to bring in fans, sponsors, and national attention. When those stars are sidelined, everything from ticket sales to the league's hard-earned reputation takes a significant hit. Fans are not just worried about Clark, they're worried about what her injury means for the future of the league itself. The WNBA simply cannot afford to lose the athletes who are driving its unprecedented success.
The only way that is causing her groin injury is if she already had injured her groin, or if she was already carrying something.
Caitlyn Clark's injury wasn't just an isolated, unfortunate event, it was a blaring alarm bell, exposing a deeper vulnerability within the WNBA. It highlighted lingering questions about how teams manage their most valuable assets and whether the league is truly doing enough to protect its brightest stars from a physically brutal style of play. While Clark is a renowned quick healer, her return will be more than just a test of her grit. It will be a pivotal moment for the WNBA.
I wonder how long she's out for. I really do. I fully believe she's been playing through this injury since then. I fully believe that aggravated it. I still think that even if she went out and didn't do that, I still think she'd be suffering a bit of an injury, and playing her on a back-to-back isn't ideal.
Will they finally listen to the growing chorus of fans and enact real change to curb dirty play and better manage player workloads? Or will this painful lesson be ignored, leaving the league's future and the careers of its biggest names hanging precariously in the balance? Only time will tell if the WNBA chooses to safeguard its future or if more of its shining stars are destined to crumble under the mounting pressure. Comment below how you would change WNBA rules to keep stars like Clark safe, and share your thoughts on this unfolding story.